Russian scientists stated in 1970 that Moon is artificial space object. The hypothesis that the Moon is hollow inside is far from new. In his 1901 novel entitled, The First Men in the Moon, H. G. Wells, 1866–1946, known to many as the father of science fiction, wrote about an epic journey to the Moon. The protagonists of the novel are surprised to learn that the Moon is not at all what it seems to be from Earth. In fact, it is hollow and inhabited by a strange alien race. Such fantasies were very bold for a novel published in 1901. However, as soon as people visited the Moon more than 60 years later, the concept of a hollow moon was further developed. Why did this happen? During lunar landings, astronauts deployed several seismographs on the lunar surface. These tools are designed to record movements and vibrations. Seismographs remained on the lunar surface to collect activity data on the Moon. The instruments that were installed during the Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, and 16 missions transmitted information to the Earth via a radio channel until they were simply turned off because of financial savings in 1977. The astronauts were given a series of ALSEPs, or Apollo Lunar Surface Experiment Packages, to set up seismographs and initiate detonations ranging from shotgun-like charges to mortars with multiple grenades. Eventually, NASA intentionally crash-landed the Apollo 12 module as well, as the SIVB rocket setting off an explosive force equivalent to nearly 12 tons of TNT. These data spoke a lot about the Moon and its internal structure. In particular, they reported the existence of moonquakes. These events were divided into 4 categories. 1. Deep moonquakes, 700 km below the surface. 2. Vibrations caused by meteorite impacts. 3. Thermal moonquakes. 4. Small moonquakes, 20 to 30 km below the surface. These last small moonquakes led to the hypothesis of a hollow moon. It is said that during these events, the Moon rang like a bell. This phrase was often used after the Apollo 12 flight. During its implementation, the 2.5-ton takeoff stage was deliberately dropped on the lunar surface. The duration and severity of the seismic disturbance caused by the shock surprised the seismologists. They heard strong signals lasting for more than an hour and a half after the impact and weaker signals that were recorded within an hour after the collision. It is not surprising that using such information, some people came to the appropriate conclusion. The Moon, in their opinion, may not be as solid as official science claims. Some highly respected scientists of the last century have stated that the Moon is an alien spaceship. It is known as the theory of Vasin-Scherbakov. In an article by Mikhail Vasin and Alexander Scherbakov published in 1970, it was suggested that the Moon is actually an artificial hollow satellite of the Earth, placed in near-Earth orbit by extraterrestrials. Vasin and Scherbakov were the members of the USSR Academy of Sciences. However, the article was published not in a scientific journal, but in the Sputnik publication. They had to withstand both extreme heat and cold and be durable to bear the impacts of meteorites. Besides, they raised numerous questions about the formation of the Moon which was difficult for other scientists to ask. By doing so, they faced a lot of criticism. Suniti Karunatilake of Cornell University suggests that there are, at least 2, ways to determine the distribution of mass within a body. One involves a moment of inertia parameters, the other involves seismic observations. One such parameter, the normalized polar moment of inertia, is 0.393 plus minus 0.001, which is very close to that for a solid object with a radially constant density, 0.4. Karunatilake. For comparison, Earth's value is 0.33. Karunatilake. These observations have constrained the thickness of the Moon's crust, mantle, and core, suggesting it could not be hollow. Karen Masters of the University of Portsmouth similarly suggests that, based on the behavior of objects interacting with the gravitational field of the Moon, we can determine its mass. Given the observable size of the Moon, we can then calculate the density, which strongly rejects the notion that the Moon could be hollow. Scherbakov and Vasin proposed that massive machines were used to melt rock and form long cavities within the Moon, spreading the molten refuse onto the lunar surface. They said that the Moon was preserved by a hull-like inner shell in addition to a reconstructed outer shell of metallic rocky junk, and eventually, this enormous craft was steered through the cosmos and finally put in orbit around our planet. The two scientists backed their claim with scientific data. They stated that some lunar rocks contained processed metals such as brass, the elements of uranium-236, and neptunium-237. Interestingly, these cannot be found to occur naturally. According to Zulu and other native African accounts, the Moon was built far away, to keep an eye on people, and as a vehicle to travel the universe. It says that the reptilians' giant mothership is the Moon, and that's where they escaped during the cataclysms of the Great Flood, which they had caused by manipulating the Moon and creating other cosmic events.